I lost my father when I was 5 years old. And I recognize that every issue that stems in my life really goes back to fundamentally one thing. It's a daddy issue. So I say to every man sitting under the sound of my voice, I'll never be able to articulate to you the respect that I have for you. You didn't have to go home. You didn't have to come to the house of God. I thank God for every man that does serve God, that serves his family, that serves his company, his country, that serves this community. Come on and put your hands together, because I thank God for you.
Your love is changing me, and your word is healing me. Open the sky, send down love. Open our eyes, spirit above. Open the sky, send down love. Open our eyes, spirit above.
The first and only commandment to which God annexes a promise is this one: to honor your father and your mother, that your days may be prolonged and that it may go well with thee. The word "may go well" literally in the Hebrew means to make well. Literally, it is to be sound, to be beautiful, or figuratively, it is to be happy, successful, and right. So all of us desire to be happy. All of us desire, we're engineered for success. We want things to go well with us. We want to live a life that is sound, that is solid, that is beautiful, a good life, an abundant life. And so God says, here's the attachment to you living sound and abundant and beautiful and solid and happy and successful. He says to have the fruit of that life, the root of it is to honor your mother and father, to honor your father. Now I can hear somebody saying, and trust me, you know your pastor well enough. I hear someone thinking, well, you don't know the messed up family that I came from. You don't understand the dysfunction and what I went through, and my father might not be deserving of honor. Well, let me show you scripturally what that kind of attitude will produce in your life. Proverbs chapter 30, verse 11 and 17, the NIV says, gives us a picture of that wrong attitude. In verse 11 it says, there are those who curse their fathers and do not bless their mothers. By the way, all cursing and blessing in the Bible is full of it. Many of us live out still under the residue of cursing because we don't understand how to get our full freedom and liberty that has been given to us by Christ Jesus. But all blessing and cursing comes through the exchange of words. Basically, when you break down what a blessing and what a cursing is, it has to do with a word exchange from certain positions. And that's why ultimately what God says about you brings the blessing to you no matter what somebody has said over you. Somebody say amen. Because if God says I'm blessed, then the final analysis is I'm blessed. If God says I'm the head and not the tail, if God says I'm healed, his word has the highest authority, as we'll see, over any other word that is spoken over me. I just have to come in alignment with that. And so when we begin to see that it says, those who curse, those who speak against their fathers and do not bless their mothers. Verse 17 gives us the result. The eye that mocks a father, that scorns obedience to mother, will be pecked out by the ravens of the valley and will be eaten by the vultures. Notice it doesn't say anything based on how we are treated. It doesn't say anything like, okay, this is conditional. If your father's a good daddy and you guys get along well and you like him, then in other words, you're good to each other. Now you're going to be blessed, and if not, this is going to happen. It doesn't say that. The response comes to us. Regardless of a person, now I'm going to talk to you about healthy boundaries and all the right, how to recognize, but regardless, it is my responsibility to respond in a biblical manner. So I'm not to curse my father. I'm not to speak against those that have been positioned in authority. So I want you to really begin to get a separance in your spirit and your mind that this is not to do with personality as it is position. and that ultimately I trust God for sovereignty, that I ultimately trust that my DNA was formed before I was ever put in my mother's womb, that my journey was already predetermined, that everything, I understand my power of choice, my power of will, but God had a plan, and ultimately that plan, especially for a surrendered life, is coming to pass. So when I give honor, I feel the terms of my commitment. I'm in a position, all of us have a father. So we all have a certain obligation according to biblical standards and patterns and principles to honor our father. Now, maybe you lost your father and he's not living, but you have a spiritual father, or you have someone like, for me, it's Bishop Jakes. You have someone in your life that is a figure of authority. If not, you have anarchy. And not all authority. Listen, there is abuse of authority, and we're going to talk about different things, but authority is God's way of doing things. It's God's way. And so I'm going to put the onus of responsibility where it really belongs, and that is when we honor, and you'll find out, our fathers. You might have a Jacob as a daddy, but when you honor him, Israel will speak. It really is up to us. I say this often. Every man has a king and a fool. The one you talk to is the one that will show up. Look at your neighbor and say, I think she might be talking to the man right behind you right now. I was teaching and preaching about the issues in my life pretty much because everything, when you trace it back, has a root. Symptoms have roots. And I said I had daddy issues. It's just the easiest way to kind of label, even though I don't like the label of it. But it stemmed back from my father's death when I'm 5 years old. And I talked about, in a moment, my father made a very poor quality decision, and I don't blame him or, fine, but I understand. I'm not justifying that either, but I recognize he was not equipped in life. His irresponsibility was he didn't take the steps to help himself that ultimately ended up hurting not just him, obviously, but all of us. So I know you, it's a little bit different, but in similar ways, kind of we hit the same place of dysfunction and issues.
Right.
Yours was your mom died when you're 2, not by choice, but it still left you with abandonment.
Yeah, my dad said I used to run to the door for like a good year or 2 after she died. When's mommy coming home? When's mommy coming home? And just cry, lay on the floor and cry, waiting for her.
Wow. See, I did that too, like in a different way. I remember being like a young teenager and seeing a tall man that would be 6 feet, dark hair, similar to my dad's stature in pictures. And I'd look and just create this whole fantasy that maybe that's my dad. Because it's so hard when someone's gone with no intent to return. And death is one of those means. It might be a person's an abandoner. Mm-hmm. They just leave, they walk out. But the other thing is your mom was giving birth to your brother and lost her life in that process.
Right.
Man, I can't imagine 2 years old, and then your dad's world is rocked. Then your brother, all the things he goes through.
God,
has to feel, and he's not responsible. But that's what happens with abandonment, rejection. You go into toxic shame. Shame is basically, I'm a bad person because of who I am and things I've done. And we take on all these false beliefs that are so hard. I wish I could just say, the only way I know to get over it and really get healing, the only way, is you have to, have a connection with God. There has to be the spiritual side, the God side. It has to go beyond cognitive therapy and just because I tell myself 1,000 times, but this thing's so programmed, you've got to transcend and get into the part of the brain that really houses the spiritual. And I know I've known you for 16 years. Mm-hmm. And I am so incredibly proud of you.
Oh, thanks.
I really am, Rach, because I've watched you. The reality is you shouldn't be sitting here in your right mind, married, stable.
Whoa, it's relative.
I was like, depending on who, we don't want to be totally like all normal or living right now. But seriously, very, very functional. Productive, a thinker. You're an incredible human being, incredible. And the reality is, not just did you have to deal with your mom's death,
But then you really became caretaker at a very young age. And then when your dad remarried, wasn't the greatest situation. No. I mean, you were severely abused, and to sit here and statistics said Rachael should not be this, and that. And you just kept fighting and forging your way through.
I beat all the odds. And I did that with God, and I did that with therapy and getting the right tools.
I was going to say, tell me what the key to getting there has been for you.
It's been a combination of obviously keeping God as the anchor of my life, which that was solidified for me at 13 when I tried to commit suicide. I had a very real spiritual encounter with the Lord, and I think that's what probably saved me and carried me through what I would walk through up until 18, 19. And then outside of that, I had some really good therapists. I had 3 different therapists that helped me in different areas, and just learning the tools, learning where my baseline was, and sitting under your messages, and really that was a huge factor. That was just as much beneficial to me as therapy was, but they were all different areas that connected to make this perfect picture from broken pieces to bring wholeness back.
It couldn't be put, more eloquently, that it really does. It takes a village to raise a child or restore a child, and even though we're not children, it was the child in us, the inner child, that got broke.
And what else I think is key is being honest with yourself.
Yeah.
Because when you start to put the pieces back together, you have to be open to know these are my areas of weakness and vulnerability. Mm-hmm. So once take abandonment for an issue. When I realized that I had an abandonment issue, when I finally figured out what that trigger was,
right,
I started to recognize that when I met somebody new or I had people in my life, I would always look at them sideways, going in the back of my mind, not even realizing that I was doing it. Oh, I wonder how long you're going to be around.
Come here, pushing you out. Come here.
Exactly.
And the key there is we get so ingrained in that when you've been abandoned, you expect people to leave you, that you don't even realize you're going like that.
I didn't. Not until I got into therapy and started learning the tools of how to recognize what I was creating for my own life based on things that had happened, and I wasn't even aware of it.
And working through it's not easy.
No, it isn't.
But
that's the only way.
But it is, and that's the key. That's why I sit here and I say I'm so incredibly proud of you, because Rachael, at the end of the day, we all have decisions.
Right.
And I can be a victim and blame my dad the rest of my life,
right,
or blame, the people who abused me, or blame everything that didn't go right, or I can say, okay, and it just get to this place of acceptance as a process. You can go, okay, those things happen. Now what do I do about it? And you hear me say this. I'm going to take all the bad that happened in my life and allow God and His Word to turn it around, work it for good, and I'm going to multiply it and duplicate it in the lives of people. And it's not just going to be turned for good for me, but I'm going to reach out to every person that God puts in my life and see it turned around. And if I can help you by what I went through, then my pain had purpose.
I agree.
Look, babe, Pastor Paula.
Anybody who knows they've been transformed to do everything that God has determined, everything that God has decreed. You aren't transformed just so you can move into a house or drive a nice car.
Amen.
Get
Yes.
yourself some
Yes.
cute guy. You've been transformed so that you can bring forth the glory of God and be an image bearer in the earth. Slap somebody upside their head and say, I think she's talking to you right now.
Oh! Matthew chapter 28, verse 18. It says, then Jesus came to them and said, all authority. How much authority, guys? How much? All authority. Where? In heaven. And watch. And
on earth has been given to me. So all authority is summed up in Christ Jesus. Now, since that time, God placed all authority in the hand of Jesus, but Jesus in turn delegates that authority whom he's received from his Father to those whom he chooses. It says both angelic beings and human beings. Whew. Boy, I could teach on this for a long time, because when we dishonor authority, we are really crippling ourselves. We're hurting ourselves. So 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 3 says, but I would have you know that the head of every man is who? Christ. And the head of the woman is the man, and the head of Christ is God. So it goes like this. Let's see. Bill, Sheila, y'all come on up here real quick. Run up here. David, I'm going to need you real quick. You're going to be God, okay? You just look like God today. All looking nice and fine in that. All right, and I need Jesus. Who's going to be Jesus for me? Doug, you want to be Jesus? Come on, you look like a good Jesus. He goes, sure. All right. So the head, watch the order. The head of every wife is the husband. That's the leading, okay? The head of the husband is Jesus, okay? So he's following you. And the head of Jesus is God. It's divine order. And when there's order, the blessing flows. The blessing flows. And then we have the kids. Amber, get up here. We've got the kids. And it flows. And she can be acting like a fool. Not that Amber ever would. But you know what, Amber? Because they're in divine order, guess what? You are going to get blessing just because they stay in divine order. And then it's just going to keep on going and keep on going. You have no idea how much respect I have for this right here. These two are the critical ones. If this one decides she's going to wear the pants of the family and she's going to be the founder, the provider, she's going to be, and I don't mean that simply because some women make more money than men. It's not a matter of money. It's a matter of authority. It's a matter of recognize. It's a matter of she's going to be the founder, the producer, and the author, which she's not capable of because she's a female. She's a matriarch. He's a patriarch. A patriarch is a founder. He identifies, he names, he's protector, he's provider, he governs, he guides, he guards. She nurtures. She brings a side of the love of God that is completely different. When she gets out of line and tries to dictate, she puts a kink in everything. As long as he's safe, she puts a kink in everything. Blessing stops because God will not bless disorder. Where there is strife and envy, there is confusion, disorder. And really, it's his fault, I'm just going to say, because he's not man enough to put that woman back in her spot. Sometimes y'all going, you ain't talking like that. Yes, I am. You just need to man up and put that woman in her place. Because a secure man can man up by not being abusive. He doesn't have to say, I'm man. You don't have to say that. He loves her in her place. He secures her in her place. Now, you say, what if he's not saved? What if he's a Jack Daniel fooling around? You've got a couple choices, sincerely. Wonder if he is a covenant breaker. He doesn't carry covenant. Well, did you marry him before knowing that and thinking you were going to get him saved? That's another sermon for another day. But let's just say you're in this situation. All right, the Bible declares something that you can then sanctify. It's like God gives this bypass. God's going to say, I'm going to jump over the fool. Come on. And if you'll still stay in order, I'm going to bless this household. I'm going to bless this family. Now, it's going to be a little bit tougher on you. It really is. That's the reality. But I'm going to bless this household. I'm going to bless it. Now, you can, depending on his actions, if he breaks covenant, if he's unfaithful, you can ask God to restore and you can stay, or you can replace. That's Bible, guys. That's Bible. That's Bible. So everybody make you feel like, I can't believe you did that. Now, can I share your testimony? Come on. I mean, you are happily married in a good covenant, right? But it's not your first marriage. So God restored to you, okay? So let me tell you, divorce is not the end of the world, guys. Sometimes it's God's gift of love, because God does not expect anybody to be abused or misused or violated. You don't have to have a third person in your marriage. I'm going to teach you Bible, not religion. But God's perfect order, and I'm the biggest advocate for family. You'll never meet someone who believes in family more. Now, if this is just a good man, but kind of an ignorant man because he doesn't have a relationship with God, just keep praying, keep believing, keep standing, and honoring. And I believe that God has an appointed time. You see, the blessing flows from the head down. There's an order. Somebody say, thank you guys. Somebody say there's an order.
Emotional healing, like people look and they have a sympathy with physical healing perhaps, but they don't understand it. Emotional healing's the same.
Right.
Everybody has a different speed and a different need. And part of that is that you can't force me to do this in 3 days or 3 years. It's going to be, sooner or later, I'm going to get sick and tired of being broken, dysfunctional, hopefully, and go through and push myself and kind of get there. But getting to that place of acceptance means, like Father's Day, I don't love Father's Day. I don't go, woohoo, it's Father's Day, because I don't understand it. I mean, I sit and I admire, I have such a healthy respect for patriarch. I remember the first time I went to Israel, I watched on, Sabbath, I watched in the streets of Jerusalem, fathers and daughters, very family community. They were dancing in the streets. And I'm just sitting there like, it was so pure, it was so wholesome. I can remember, daddy-daughter times that I would see people interact. Even your dad knew how close you guys are. And I see it, and I have no point of reference. I don't know what that is. I've never known that since the time I was like 5 years old. So I say that because it's not the easiest time, but I also accept, like, this happened in my life. I can't change it. I can't modify the event. I can't undo it. There's not a time machine. So the question really becomes, what do I do about it? And that's what I'm saying. Not all things God sent, but God used. Will I let God use it? Will I take this negative event in my life, or this painful event, and get to this place of acceptance? And acceptance doesn't mean I'm glad about it or I like it. It means I accept it, and how do I grow from it and become better, not bitter. Anger is your healthiest emotion, by the way. And it's, okay, I don't like that this happened, but what am I going to do? And I've chosen, I'm one of the biggest advocates for families. Like I said, healthy respect for patriarch and understanding of it. I am far from a man hater. you know.
And I went through the women hating stage.
Right.
But now, I've learned to accept the role of what a woman is supposed to be in your life.
As that
was very challenging.
How did you get there to acceptance?
I would say I probably have only gotten there recently.
Yeah.
Like within the last couple of years.
Yeah.
That was quite a journey.
Right.
I mean, that was a lot of pent up anger process of purging my soul and just like letting it out. Because,
right.
I looked at women as, just crazy nut jobs that, didn't have any real means of being here other than to annoy you.
Well, and that's because not only the death of your mother, but you were severely abused by your stepmother. And that was...
I had a very strong distaste in my mouth for women.
Yeah.
And my father being the man that he is in my life, I love and adore him and, always very close to him. And my brother, So my friends in life and the people that I related most to were men, and
Yeah.
I could not understand women because the only woman I understood didn't love me unconditionally. She did not love me unconditionally.
Or love you at all.
Or if that, yeah.
And I'm not going to say didn't love you at all, but she was incapable of love.
Right.
Of healthy love.
Right.
Safe love. You know?
Definitely not safe.
Yeah. Because love is not this feeling of, oh, your love is really unconditional. I mean, we look at the characteristics in 1 Corinthians 13, but more than unconditional, it's safe. It really is safe. It's a shelter. And you think of God's love, or you think how real, it produces feelings, but it really is rooted as it's, to me, well, to the word, it's the greatest of all the characteristics, the fruit of the Spirit. Love. You can have all this, but if you don't have love, you're just a bunch of brass. Clinking, clanging sounds. So it really is, God is love.
That's why love, to me, is so important. It's such a valuable lesson in going through all of that pain and abandonment and rejection in life. Is that I think it brings you to a pureness of what love really represents and allows you to have complete forgiveness for everything that could make you bitter.
That's good. That's a good thought right there.
Wow, good work.
Oh my gosh, I gotta post this on Facebook!
Yeah! Yeah! Woo!
Wow.
Maybe I won't reach everyone, but there is someone that I am reaching, and that's because of people who partner with Paula and just Paula. And I know through experience that I could say right now, okay, we need to build a building. Our television media ministry costs this much. Their capital campaigns, their causes, their specific missions, which we give to, every single day, every week, we're making a difference. But here's the reality. If you really do believe in being a world changer and a history maker and say, Paula, I know together we are greater than separated, that we can make a difference. I'm going to ask you to give $10, not toward a building, not towards a bill, not towards a TV camera, but towards spiritual transformation in the lives of every person that God enables me to reach, which right now are masses and multitudes of millions. And I believe this, that every time you give, something supernatural really does happen. And I know it sounds so laid back, and I should be specific. Get up and why don't you give $100? But I'm not there. I'm in a different place that I just believe somebody can hear. In other words, let's change one more life. And if that's you, will you just pick up that phone or go to the website? Or would you just write the P.O. box and say, Paula, I want to make a difference. And maybe I can't save them all, but I can do my part. And together we can transform lives. And when we come together in the power of partnership and unity, we can really impact people.